about 5 times, I think the gentleman said, reported to him that they saw one of the Sasquatch coming out of that mine shaft.
I came out one night and didn't turn the light on until I got all the way out of the house. When I shined the light, there was that thing that was exactly the Shunka Workin.
You could see the limbs moving like something in the top of those trees. We could see what we thought at the time was monkey hands and monkey feet. And you'd see it stick out of those bushes every once in a while.
As I walked towards this thing, all of a sudden, it gave off a roar. Whatever this thing was taller than I was. I am 6'4".
And I asked her, I said, could these be mountain lions? She goes, they don't make mountain lions this big. And mountain lions don't walk on 2 feet. She said, last night, she said, it sounded like Freddy Krueger, you know how he has those knives. She said, it sounded like it drug down the side of our house.
Hello, everyone. My name's Elijah Henderson.
And I am Gabrielle Henderson.
This is Cryptid Studies Institute. Gab, how you been doing today?
I've been doing well. I am very happy to see you actually hit record this time. As all of you heard last week, Elijah forgot to hit record on the show.
I did, and that poor gentleman was telling me a story for a couple of minutes before I looked up and realized I wasn't recording. I had to reset the whole thing. But I'm good. I'm ready to go. It's going. It's heck yes. And my friends, tonight we have a gentleman on the channel whose amazing encounters with the unknown are equal to his own personal achievements. They're absolutely incredible. Our guest, Randy, or as he's also known as Rockin Randy, he's a known country music singer. He's been a radio and television host, a comedian, and he's also been the heavyweight wrestling champion of the world at least 3 times. He was a professional wrestler in the 80s and the 90s for Mid-States Professional Wrestling, NWA Pro Wrestling, a tag team champion, and now he operates as an evangelistic preacher in Las Vegas. And tonight, Randy has come onto our channel to tell us some frightening things that he endured in Middle Tennessee, nearby the famous Loretta Lynn's Ranch. We're very excited to have him on, and without further introduction, Randy, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I am doing awesome. Glad to be on the show and talking to you guys.
Man, we're very happy to have you on.
And I'm a long-time listener, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much, man.
We thank you very much for your support and your listens.
Man, you are an impressive person. Why don't we start this thing off by just kind of telling about your history a little bit? How'd you get started in your professional, your wrestling career and whatnot? That's a very interesting thing.
I didn't want to work a job.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, I grew up, my parents are in the restaurant business or plumbing and sewer business, and I did it for a while, but I always, matter of fact, I got started, I was in Syracuse, New York. I was at used to be WWF, wrestling show, which is WWE. I was sitting front row, and Greg the Hammer Valentine came up, and he was doing his bad guy spiel, and he swung at me, and I swung back, and I told him, I says, give me 5 minutes in the ring, and I'll show you what wrestling's all about, because I used to box and stuff, and it kind of went back and forth, and the next morning I went to pick up my ex-wife, because she worked at the Holiday Inn, and they were staying there, and one of the guys said, hey, did you ever think about being a wrestler? You were pretty good about that last night, and I said, yeah, someday. Well, I took the card, went to Chicago, went to school for a year. Then I went to Mexico for a year and learned how to wrestle Hispanic wrestling and American wrestling. And from there, it was all downhill. I just, wrestling was like my mistress of love. And then I got hurt, got out of that, went into the music business, did some singing with some big celebrities. And I've been out with Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, and I sang with Loretta Lynn in her kitchen when I was a little boy, and my wife now is related to her, and so our family's kind of mixed with her. And I used to open up as a comedian with Louis Anderson and a lot of different places like that. So the entertainment business has always been my thing. I had my own TV show in Florida and my own radio show. My TV show was around the couch with Rockin Randy, and it was like a Tonight Show. And came to Vegas to do my own show, and TV, people are not watching TV anymore. Everything's in podcasts and stuff like that. So I might start up a podcast and see what happens from there.
Man,
That's kind of my quick prep on life there.
Man, that is such a cool life to live. You've done
A jack of
whole
all
lot of
trades,
things.
really.
Yeah, that's a great experience there.
Wrestling is big money, is good money, takes a toll on you when you're later. And when I got hurt, I got out, like I said, I went down the music business, and music and wrestling is basically my life. And during those times of my life, I've had, my encounters with, with the Bigfoot resident of the South and in Florida and in New York. So I've had more than one experience, not even just in Tennessee, but in New York and in Florida.
Heck yes, and we're excited to hear about that stuff tonight. I've been meaning to have you on the show for quite a while. We met back in it's probably, what was it, like last September?
Yeah, about a year ago.
And I kind of just got out of the habit of uploading stuff. I'll have a period where I'm uploading a lot of stuff into the channel, and then I'll start procrastinating, and that's my apologies, sort of where you fell into there. I just kind of got out of the habit of uploading stuff.
And our apologies to the listeners as well for the lack of content.
Yes, my apologies as well on that matter.
Something, I enjoy your shows. You guys are really consistent with with your shows, and even if they're old shows and stuff like that, or on on YouTube and stuff, you always make your show interesting, and I'm proud to be on your show.
Well, we sure do appreciate it, and we're proud to have you here, brother. I guess to get started tonight, would you mind telling us about some of the things that happened in your childhood? About a year ago when we talked, you told me about some of the things that happened when you were a little boy, and we'd be real interested in hearing about that tonight.
All right. Well, I could start you off. My dad's from Waverly, Tennessee, which is right down the road from Buffalo, Tennessee, where Loretta Lynn lives, and a lot of interesting things happen in Tennessee. This town my dad was from, my grandfather was one of the first settlers there, and Frank James, Jesse James's brother, was the sheriff of that town. And my grandfather was a farmer. He did logs and stuff, wood, chopping down wood, and we used to go there for like 2 months every year. And my biggest thing when I went to Tennessee was I like to ride the mule. They have one of the big mule horses,
Mm-hmm.
And, you're a little kid. That thing's like a Clydesdale. And that was my thing. And my first experience with Bigfoot, I was probably just before kindergarten or in kindergarten, like 4 or 5 years old. And I ran across a dirt road. And my grandfather was just done, with a big mule behind the plow. Because he used to do it by, plow and range, There were no tractors.
Mm-hmm.
And I run out there and like, Grandpa, it's getting dark, you're done, and I want to ride the mule. Well, it started thundering and lightning a little bit, a lot of heat lightning. And my grandfather said to me, he goes, you can't ride, you can't, I think his name was Toby, I believe it was. Anyways, long story short, he goes, you can't ride him because lightning will strike a hot animal. I said, okay, so we were walking the mule, and lightning really bad. And the barns, it's got the gable roof, and the barn doors kind of slid sideways. And we're probably 50 yards from the barn. And to me, it looked like a bear. And then remember, I'm a little guy. This thing has got the top of the barn, and it's shaking the barn. I mean, literally, it was standing, it had to be a good 10 feet tall, because it was grabbing the top of the barn and shaking the barn. And my grandfather said, we got to go now. And so he's got me by the hand. The mule takes off. My grandfather's running across the cornfield, and my feet are dragging like a cartoon, in the air, hitting the ground in the air. And we get back to my grandfather's house, and it was one of those aluminum siding houses with a tin roof. When it rains, it's just like, And we run in the house, and they had one of those, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the old screen doors. It had the wire going from one corner to the other.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we ran in there, and my grandfather says to my uncles and stuff, the hairy man is at the barn. I don't know what, you're a kid. You don't have an idea what this is. the more, and they wouldn't grab their guns off the wall. Now, you got to remember those Tennessee porches, they got that slant down and got that little one step up on the wooden porch. This thing ripped the door off the house.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting in the middle of this living room, because the living room was like the main space when you walked in, and then there was a kitchen after that. The bedrooms were off to the side. And my grandfather had a 12-gauge Stevens rifle, which I happened to get later in life. He shoots, boom. My uncle, boom. There's like boom, boom, boom. And I see this thing get hit in the chest and makes this scream like, whoa! Falls backwards off the porch. Now, this thing was ducking down, first of all, when it was at the porch. So it fell off the porch, and I remember seeing the lightning as he fell off backwards, and they began to run outside to make sure they killed this, and it was gone.
It was completely gone.
Completely gone.
Was there any traces of blood or anything left like that?
Well, they went out there with the lanterns, and they were looking around, and I don't remember as a kid seeing blood, because the next day I went out there, and they were showing like where when he fall off, he had hit the you fall backwards and you kind of make a slide mark.
Right.
There was impressions like from like elbows or arms or something had slid across the ground, but I don't remember ever seeing any blood. Ever.
Maybe he's in a position where nothing dripped out or anything like that.
Yeah, and for something to be shot 4 times to get up and take off like that is pretty scary, especially when you're like, wow, they shot a bear and he couldn't kill it. But, there was one of those things, and I kind of let it go and didn't say nothing about it, because I'm in Tennessee and my family's there. And so about a couple nights later, Tennessee, those old houses got the tall windows are only about 2 foot, 3 foot off the ground, and that big square window. And they had 2 big feather beds on each end. And right next to that was a gravel driveway, and the road was gravel, and there was a wood pile out there. And we were always told as a kids, you don't leave the porch. You don't go in the backyard with the woods by the well. Stay out of the wooden garage and stay away from the wood pile because you get bit by a rattlesnake. And as a kid, I used to hear, even when I was younger, like a screaming noise. And it always sounded like a woman yelling. And I used to say, what is that? And they said, that's the Black Panther. I'm like, a Black Panther? He had escaped from the zoo and still ain't caught it. That's why you can't go out at night and this and that, So you get all these horror stories as a kid. Well, right after this thing was shot, I would say maybe a week later, I heard something, and I've heard it before, but never realized what it was. It was like a grunt, like, And on the other side of this wood pile was a persimmon tree. And one night I heard this, but I got a whiff of a really, really bad smell. It was like, I can't explain it except for saying it smelled like a garbage can. You go to like in a park or something, dead food, bad food and dirty diapers. I can't explain the smell, but it was worse than a skunk. A skunk smelled like perfume.
It was definitely nothing normal to find out in nature.
Yeah, I smelled a skunk before, and they don't really smell that bad, but this stunk. And so I slid out of that big old feather bed, and I stood in the window, and I saw something reaching up and pulling these persimmons off, because I used to eat them all the time. My grandpa would go out there on a ladder and pull them down. And I looked at it, and I coughed, and I'll remember this, I coughed, and as I coughed, it turned around. Now, the wood pile was about 4 foot high, like people make their wood piles.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like it was a giant compared to that wood pile. Again, I'm a little kid, and at the time, it looked at me dead in the face. We're only maybe 15, 20 feet at the most apart from each other. And all I can remember, he looked at me, his eyes looked like the size of silver dollars, and they were glowing red. And when I say glowing red, I mean glowing red, like I look at Satan himself.
Now, did it come across like a bioluminescent glow, or was something reflecting off of the eyes?
Something, No, it's like it's not a reflection. It is something that's like burning, almost like they're on fire.
Like little burning coals.
Like yeah, like a little burning coal. Exactly. That's the right word for it. I stood there and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and it was like people think I'm foolish when I say this, but it was like he was talking to me as a kid. And the message I kind of got was stay away from the woodpile, stay away from the woodpile. And it was almost like I was being glamored, like Dracula would do. Like you see on TV, glamours a woman, where he puts the bite up. And I've always remembered that kind of like I couldn't believe what I was seeing because it was huge. I could see its eyes and the sun, and not sun, but the moon. Tennessee is so dark when the moon's out; it's almost like daylight, especially.
Right.
And and there's no out there. You can't at night. You can't see your hand in front of your face, but the moonlight was out, and I could see him just as clear as he could see me. And it was almost like I was in a trance with him. And I guess he was telling me to stay away from that wood pile or whatever it may be. But it was like I was there for a long time. I remember being there a long time because my grandfather came in because he gets up at 5 in the morning, and he came in and he goes, "Hey, boy, what are you doing?" And I couldn't talk. I was just standing at the window. And he said he went out and came back in. I was still standing at the window. I must have stood there a long time. And the next day, that morning I told my grandfather, I said, there was a big bear eating the persimmons off the tree. He says, where? I said, on the other side of the woodpile, Grandpa. And he said, yeah, he says, don't you look out that window no more. He said, that's that bear. He goes, you never look at a bear because he'll attack you. I'm like, okay. Well, that same day, I was out there playing ball, and I got bit in the hand by a rattlesnake.
Mm.
Take it for what it's worth. Was he telling me there was rattlesnakes there? My grandmother told me, stay away from these rattlesnakes. But that was my very first encounter with Bigfoot. And as I remember, my grandmother, we'd always hear like this. It's like a woo, 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 woo. Like that woo, woo sound.
Yeah.
And I always heard that, or you heard the scream. But it was like off at a distance, but it was, you could hear like echoing. And they always said that was a black panther. Again, I heard that all the time, day and night. But my grandmother used to go out, and I'd sit on the back porch and screen in. And the night before we went to bed, she'd go get 2 chickens and break their necks and set them on the well. Because the well had a cover over the top of it, so the kids wouldn't fall in there. And she would put 2 chickens on that well. And we'd go to bed next morning, those chickens would be gone. And I never knew why till I was maybe 8th, 9th grade. And my grandmother had passed away, and I went to Tennessee, and I had my grandfather, it was hot down there, so we'd sit underneath the weeping willow tree. And I loved spending time with him because he'd tell me stories about, my grandfather was over 100-something years old. He was a little boy during the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and, he told me about the Civil War and how my great-grandfather was Colonel Jeb Stuart of the Confederate Army. He rode a white horse. He's in our history books. Rode a white horse and had an ostrich feather in his hat. And so I used to get all these stories. And so my grandfather would tell me, different stuff like that. But then I had asked him one day, I said, Grandpa, I need to ask you something. He says, what? I said, you still put the chickens out on the well? He says, no. He goes, your grandma used to do that. I said, why? And he says, well, I'm going to tell you. You're old enough to know. He says, that's the hairy man. And I said, the hairy man, okay? Fill me in on this hairy man. And, of course, at that time, I still didn't know anything about Bigfoot. And my grandfather said, that yelling you would hear? It sounded like a panther. We always told you it was from the zoo. I said, yeah. He goes, that's the hairy man screaming. He says, and that night you said that, because many times at night I would hear that, even after I was told not to go to the window. I didn't go to the window, but I would still hear the trees, shaking out there. And the footprints and that grunting sound. And I said, I didn't go because I thought it was a bear. He said, no. He goes, that was the hairy man. And Grandma used to leave him two chickens as to say, hey, we're good with you, And he says he kind of basically watched over. He said he always thought Bigfoot liked kids. He goes, and nothing ever came around our houses. No cougars, no bears, no coyotes. And he said, it was like he was the protector of that area. And I said, well, that's really cool, Well, to hear that, and then he said, I'll tell you something. I said, well, where does it come from? He goes, it's been around as long as man's been alive. He goes, during the Civil War, he says, soldiers would talk about these big things running through and grabbing their dogs, their dogs they had in the camps, or grabbing food or something they had killed, knocking soldiers down, grabbing it, and running right straight out the other side. And they had many, Union and Confederate soldiers had many run-ins with Bigfoot. And, the Indians have different names for it. So, Tennessee was really wild for me. And I've had other experiences, but since we're in Tennessee, we'll stick right here with this one. Mm-hmm. 2017, I went back to Tennessee. I was going to move there. And, now I know all about Bigfoot. And I said, I'm kind of interested in this. And, I still hear that yelling. I still hear that whooping. So I was living at my cousin's house in Waverly, down in this little holler, as the Southerns call it, 3 houses on the road. And my older cousin, Eddie, says, I saw Bigfoot down the road. I was coming home in my truck, and he ran out in front of me. And I said, really? Still around? That's what I hear yelling? And he said, yeah. My other cousin goes, that's a screech owl. No, that's a mockingbird. And he always had an excuse for whatever. So my cousin Eddie goes, watch. And he goes, woo-hoo-hoo! He does this, whooping sound, and it answers right back. I mean, immediately. He whooped, it whooped back. And my cousin goes, that's a screech owl or a mockingbird. That's no Bigfoot. Now, we're in a place where it's so dark when you're sitting on the porch, you can't see each other. One thing you see is your cigarette, and hopefully the moonlight when it's out. And we did this for a couple nights, and it answered back. Well, my cousin Ricky says, I'm going to prove to you guys there's no Bigfoot out there. He goes, those are coyotes, this and that. We starts playing these animal distress like rabbits and possums and deer and stuff. And he's done this for a few nights. And we would hear that whoo-hoo sound, and then we'd hear it in another distance. Then you'd hear it off another hill. Because there's nothing but mountain, hills around you. Well, they went out deer hunting one day afternoon. And when they came back, it was getting late. And I bought one of those solar lights you put up, so it'll come on. Mm-hmm. So I could see myself go from the car to the house. And that was the only light they had out there. But they said, we're going to go in and get clean. And they had like this metal pole. It was like, like a kind of a square U. And they hung the deer up on there. And they've already, pulled the guts out, but they're going to pull the skin off of it. And they said, well, what we're going to do is let's go get something to drink, clean up, put on some different clothes so we don't get all bloody and stuff. And we'll take the cars and turn the headlights on. And, the other light will work and we'll be good. We're not in the house 10 minutes. And all of a sudden, something slaps the side of the house so hard, the knickknacks in the living room were shaking.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty hard.
It was hard enough. They're not really big houses in the first place. But to bang by the kitchen wall, which was the front door, rattled the house. The glasses, they put them on the porcelain sinks, on the side. They rattled off and fell in the sink.
That's some force there. That's some serious force.
You ain't kidding. Well, I said, what in the moly, what, in different languages. And we all jump up, and my cousin Eddie goes, I don't know, but grab the gun. So, they got guns now. We run out the door. The spotlight came on also. And that's when the light came on, I believe is when he hit the house. I think the light startled him. But it hit the side of the house, and he had taken both of the deer off the post. And when we got out there, we seen him going behind the garage, a wooden garage. That's one of the old wooden garages. And then my cousin had a 1970, whatever, Chevy pickup truck, the old ones. The roof of the truck, the cab is like really high. It went behind the garage, past the truck. When it went past the truck, the light that I had bought was still shining. He was 4 foot taller than the top of the truck.
Oh my goodness.
And he had 2 ways of going, either making a left and coming out behind the house, or making a right going down this little 3 foot gully, which used to like a little creek when it rains, and up this hill. And he went down and up. And as he went up, you could see this dark shadow holding 2 deer underneath each arm. And they're going, bah, 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 reload, bah. We should all the way up this mountain. We went out there afterwards. The flashlights were looking, both deer gone. The only blood out there was the deer's blood. And it went up that hill. When I tell you it went up the hill, it probably went 50 yards in a matter of 30 seconds.
Oh my goodness.
With 2 deer in its arms. One and the other. Ran up that hill. It was gone.
That is an athletic monster.
That just goes to see how elusive they could be. People are always like, well, why don't we see Bigfoot more often if they're in the woods? Well, because they're that fast.
With a deer under each arm.
With a deer under each arm.
Yeah, he ran up that hill like someone stealing 2 cantaloupes. That was the fastest thing I've ever seen move. That big. And it was like effortless. Like each step was 4 to 5 foot long. It was like, for you and I to run up the hill, we got to kind of like lean into it. It just kind of like moonwalked. It was up that hill and gone.
Could you feel like the footsteps as it was stomping off into the distance?
Oh, you could hear it. Have you ever heard horses run up? Boom, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Bigfoot runs, it's a boom, 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 boom. You can hear it, especially when it's hitting the leaves and the trees, trees and stuff on the ground.
It certainly makes a racket going back off into the woods.
Yeah, but as it got to the top, there was no more racket. It was almost like he ran into a portal and disappeared. You heard poof, poof, poof. It was done.
And complete silence.
Yeah, and he disappeared into the dark. We're shining lights up there. I don't see no red eyes. We don't see nothing. We're looking for footprints, and the ground was hard. It hadn't rained, and again, you can see where there was blood, but that was basically it. Well, the next morning, at my grandfather's house is where my cousin lives. They're probably 30, 40 yards apart. And the neighbor come up about 7:30 in the morning, knocked on the door and said, "What in the world you boys shooting at down here last night? It sounded like it was a Benghazi fight." I'm like, he said, "What, y'all having a war shooting each other?" We said, "No." He said, "Well, someone tried to break into his beagles and coon dogs pen." He said, and it was banging on the cake because he had next to the garage these chicken wire and all this other stuff that these dogs were in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was starting to bang. And he goes, "I flipped the light on." And he goes, "It hit the side of my house so hard, it knocked out the light."
Ironically, you say that where I live now, we've had a lot of strange things happen here. We live down off in the woods, and multiple times throughout the time we've lived here, it'll sound like something will just come up and slap the house. We haven't heard it in quite a while, but it used to when we were growing up. It would happen fairly often. Just sound like something come up and just swat the house.
Yeah,
I truly believe when your lights come on, it scares them. They don't like light.
And there was only one light down here, basically. So.
But we told him what happened, that night, and taking the 2 deer off and shooting at it, and he looked up and he says, "Well, the hairy man strikes again." Walked off. I'm like, okay, where did this conversation go? So my cousin Ricky, we're talking about it. He don't want to know nothing. He ain't admitting to nobody. He saw it. I go, "Dude, you were shooting at it." "Nope, didn't see nothing. I ain't telling nobody. They'll think I'm crazy." So yeah, we had blown it off, and I go about my day. So I went up to my other cousin's house. And that afternoon, I came back. And when you're coming down this road, kind of it's the first house. There's only like 3 houses on this whole road. I make a left. It's like a candy cane shaped driveway, dirt. Pulls right up to the front of the wooden garage when my cousin parks his truck. Well, I pulled in with my car, and I'm kind of, just like glancing up there because because that's where he ran last night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As I pulled, and I looked up as I was pulling, and I didn't see nothing. And I got out of the car, and you do that kind of stretch and move, and I looked up, and there he stood at the top of that hill.
Oh, wow.
Him looking at me, and me looking at him. Now, he's 100 yards away, and he still looks like he's 50 feet tall.
So this was certainly a big fella.
Buddy, I'm telling you what. I'm talking, this has got to be at least 100 yards up this hill. He was looking down at me, and I was looking up at him. And I had my phone in the center console where you keep your drinks, in the cup holder. And as I reached down to the cup holder to pick up my phone to shoot some video, I looked up, he was gone.
That fast.
I didn't hear a sound. So I'm like, okay, where did you go? And I got the camera rolling because if I'm getting attacked, at least somebody will know what happened.
Absolutely.
And so I gave out this, but a louder. I don't want to do it because I'm on the radio. And I whistled real loud, and I didn't hear nothing back. So I did it again. And the yell I got was so loud, and I still don't know where it came from, that the hair in the back of my neck and my arms and my legs stood up. And I said, okay. And I got my phone going back and forth. I'm scanning the whole everything. And my cousin pulls in with his truck, Eddie. He goes, what's going on, Rand? I said, hairy man, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call him, is standing at the top of the hill. And he says, did you see him? I said, yeah, I saw him. I said, I whistled, and he's starting to scream. Well, no more than I said that, it screamed again.
Oh.
And this time it screamed, it was like, I'll never forget. And it was like someone choking a bull or something.
Oh, wow.
But let me tell you what, it come across to me, it was loud. And I said, Eddie, where is he? He goes, I don't know, but he's close. Let's get out of here. I said, you're absolutely right. I'll send for my clothes. I did not go back. I went to stay at my other cousin's house. I said, I'm not going back down there. I said, I've had good rapport with Bigfoot all these years. You guys got to go and shoot him and make it mad. And now, I get out of the car and he's looking at me. Everybody have a nice day. And that was my last experience with Bigfoot in Tennessee.
That was
and
the last
day,
one.
He's still in that area after all these years.
Hey, I mean, at least you had a memorable final one, though. I mean, that's not something you soon forget.
Oh, no. Something, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I dream about it. Because I never was scared to be in the woods or to see Bigfoot. Like I said, and the only reason at that time is because I'd seen him so many times in other places, in Florida and in New York. And it was like, I wasn't scared of it anymore. But that scared me enough because, I don't know, it's either like really mad because y'all shot at him or, am I next? Because my cousins had told me that when they were little, that they were cooking, my aunt was cooking, and they had a chicken sitting on the sink in front of the window. There's a window by the sink. And the old hairy man stuck his arm in there and took the chicken and walked and left. I said, if I don't know that, I'd never come back here.
Now, on that property, did you all ever have any problems with it being violent in the way that animals would come up missing, things like that? Livestock or dogs or anything?
Not that I know of, because I was only there 2 months of the year when I was little, up to like 7th or 8th, 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Then I didn't go back for a long time. But I remember my grandfather saying they had a problem with it or anything like that. But my grandfather was really very wealthy man. But he used to go to the dump, which stood at the top of the hill, and he would give me he would go take old bicycles and stuff, put them together, and he'd go down to the back in downtown, and because they all played checkers at the courthouse, and he put these bicycles together and stuff, and sell them to the poor people. Like a lot of the black kids, the black families didn't have much. He'd sell for 50 cents a quarter. Now you say, well, why don't you give it to them? Everybody needs to buy something. And that's the way, they'll like it better if they, he could ask 10, 15 dollars. 50 cents. Nothing outrageous. And the few times I went with him, he'd always take this piece of chicken and different meats, and he'd set it out at the boundaries of where the dump was, where the trees were. And he had a little bitty bottle that he got from the witch doctor up in the mountains there.
Mm-hmm.
A little brown bottle with a cork in it. And he used to take the meat and put it on top of the bottle, turn it upside down, and set the meat down all over.
Oh, wow.
And I asked him one time when him and I had this talk about Bigfoot, and he said, well, when we were kids, he told me it was for the bears. He said, but if the hairy man was to come, he'd stop and pick it up and take a bite. He says, and he'd instantly go to sleep. He said, that way we could have got out of there. I'm like, okay, I'm glad I ain't going back to the dump no more.
Don't blame me.
Do you have any idea what might have been in the bottle that he had that would put it to sleep?
You know something? Back in those days, there was no hospital around, which is, the doctor and the horse and carriage, basically. But I had a cousin that get bit by a copperhead snake, and she got real sick. And my grandfather went up in the woods and saw the old witch doctor, the old lady, witch they call her, and he gave her a little brown bottle, and she drank it. Her fever busted. All of her hair on her body fell off.
Wow.
Her hair on her head fell off. And when it came, she was better the next day. Her hair grew back like Farrah Fawcett's.
That is very cool.
It really is.
There's a lot of mountain witch doctors in Tennessee. I ran across the few of them, believe me, not by choice.
They
But
are a lot over in East Tennessee, or at least used to be a lot in East Tennessee as well.
I think there's probably been a lot of mountain knowledge that's been lost over the years with the generations dying out.
Absolutely.
And my grandpa, anytime someone was sick, basically, they wouldn't. I remember him giving me something out of a little brown bottle too when I got bit by the snake.
Now yours was a rattlesnake, you said, right?
Yeah, hers was a copperhead. I believe the kids were throwing around in the yard, thought it was a grass snake. She got bit in the leg. Her leg swelled up and started to bust, and she was fevering. Her hair was falling out. And next thing you know, he's running up the back of that woods and come back with a little bottle with a cork in it. But there's a lot of old medicines out there that will save your life.
Absolutely.
But Tennessee is still a Bigfoot country, and anybody wants to find one, I can tell you where to find one.
Well, that is very exciting news. And something I was wondering about, Randy,
Sure.
At the point in your life when it came up to the door and ripped the door off the hinges and y'all shot at it, was your grandmother putting the chickens out at that point, or did she start doing it after this event?
After the event.
Like to kind of make peaceful relations with it?
Yes. The Indians, and the only reason I know this is when I lived in Syracuse, New York, one of my aunts was married to one of the chiefs on the reservation, and my other aunt was married to brother of the chief or somebody. I used to play box lacrosse with the Indians. Because box lacrosse, I saw it one time at the Syracuse Walmart, the fastest sport on foot. And they didn't use these metal sticks. They used a wooden stick shaped like a cane, with a leather pouch, That ball comes out at 100 miles an hour. And when I used to play down there, they would talk about, they called it Opagala or something like that, which was the hairy man or Bigfoot.
Just another name they had for him up there?
Yeah, it's just another name. And, I told them about my experience I had in Tennessee and in New York. My dad, I love squirrel hunting. I'd go get my 22 and go sit in the woods, My dad would drop me off, or I'd drive my car out there, and park and walk out into the woods. And again, I always smelled that smell, and a lot of things happen. I'd see trees upside down and built like teepees. And I'd get little rocks pegged at me, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. There was a lot of things, and my aunt had right there in Cincinnati, New York, had a 100-acre farm, And my sister got into that 4-H riding thing, you know.
Mhm.
So we all had to get horses. I had a little Palomino, brown and white, named Candy, and I didn't like the sound. It hurt me, you know, when I grew. I used to ride the horse bareback, and the horse would actually sit down. That's all I did, just get out and raise up. No reins, nothing. We just go walking, riding. You know, I'd pull its hair and its mane and go one way, or I'd kick it in the side and go that way. But one time, I was maybe 8, 9 years old at the time, and I went past the barn down into the woods, and it was just like little stone flat rock fences all over the place. And I asked one time, well, that's where the Indians built these, you know, this and that. Big Indian Tory in New York. And there was a little creek down in the bottom, and it was full of tadpoles. I'm like, ooh, Frog City, you know, this is great. I went back to the house and I got me a coffee can, Folgers, matter of fact, with a lid on it. I went down there and I caught a bunch of these pollywogs and stuff, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I put them in the can. Well, my dad gave me one of those old country, you know, whistles.
Mm-hmm.
When Pops whistles, you better come home. So I got on my horse and I left my can there. So I told my dad, I said, left my can, they're going to die, you know, blah, blah. Get them in the morning, get them in the morning. And they all went deer hunting out there and everything else. Long story short, I went back the next morning about 9, 10 o'clock. All my tadpoles were gone.
Oh.
And there was a rock inside my can.
Oh, they were completely removed from the can.
It's like something made a trade.
Somebody made a trade to old Rockin Randy out there in the water.
Something thought you were gifting, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess it thought I was leaving in a gift. But, you know, I probably had 20, 30 good-sized tadpoles in there, you know, and about the size of minnows, good size. It was a little stream, you know, not deep, maybe ankle deep or so, a lot of frog and stuff. And I went, who took my lid off? My tadpoles are gone. And who put the rock in here? So I took the rock out, and I'm getting some tadpoles. I was sitting on there. I was sitting on the ground, and my horse started kicking its foot, you know, giving us, you know, how they do that, you know, and not really or anything like that, but just kind of wasn't right. And I was sitting there, you know, just trying to dry out from I got home back to my aunt's ranch house there, and I just put 3 or 4 little rocks on top of each other, just a kid playing with rocks, and I went back with my can full of things. Well, the next day, I went back to get some more tadpoles. I put them in one of these little pond things you can put goldfish in. I'm going to bring all these frogs home. And I went back down there, and the rocks were rearranged.
Mm.
And again, within a matter of 15, 20 minutes I was there, I smelled that smell, and my horse wasn't happy. And I would look around, like, man, what is it? Did I step in some cow stuff, or I got something in the back of my pants? You know, this ain't right. And again, I get like little things splashed into the water, you know, like rocks hitting the water. And I'm thinking it's acorns falling off the trees. Didn't think nothing about it. So this got to be a little game. I would go down there. And I told my grandmother and my aunt about the can with the, you know, in the thing. And they said, now, Randy, you're telling stories. I said, I'm not telling you stories. I'm telling you what happened. So about a week later, I went back down there again, and I did the same thing. And I took the lid off, and I caught some tadpoles. Never I had a crawdad in there. I put that in, I put the lid on, and I left it. The next morning I went down there, same deal. Lid off, everything gone, rock inside the can. And I smelled that smell again. My horse started humping and jumping. And this went on for about a week. And I never did see him, but I smelled it. It was the same smell I remember when I was in Tennessee as a little boy, going, you know, being down there. And I thought, ain't no way, you know, this thing is here. And I didn't see it. Never did see it. And that was in New York. And then it was just weird because when I went back to the reservation to play lacrosse, I had mentioned to the chiefs about this. Well, actually, I told the kids, and they taught me. I went into what they call like a praying hut. You ever heard of it? It's like an adobe praying hut.
Right.
And you go in there and it's dark, and everybody's kind of like sitting around this little fire inside this room, smoking this peace pipe, good stuff, by the way. And they're all talking, and I said to them, they said, what did you see? Well, I told them all the things that happened to me. And so they said, come here. So we all got up. These guys are all decked out in their, Indian stuff, and it was kind of cool, It was like General Custer type of deal. Anyways, I go outside, and they showed me a totem pole. And Bigfoot was the second from the top on the pole.
Oh, cool.
I wish I had a camera to take a picture of it. As a kid, you think of camera. It looked just like what I had seen in Tennessee when I was a little boy.
To your knowledge, is the totem pole still there, or has it been, since
I have
removed?
no idea. The reservation has changed so much. They got casinos there now, and the houses those people used to live in. There used to be pieces of board and metal put together. Now they're nice houses. So, it's changed over the years. I don't know. I haven't been to the reservation in 40 years, but they showed that to me, and then we went back in, and I got to smoke peace pipe today, by the way.
Nice.
And shoo, let me tell you what, I had visions. But anyways, they told me, I said, why is this? I've had 2 encounters with this. And they said, you're an intermediate to Bigfoot. And I said, okay, I've smoked way too much of this pipe and too much of that tree bark soup y'all got over here. And, it was just, they said, no, for some reason, they're not threatened by you. It's like, and I told them when I was a kid, like it was reading my mind. And they says that the hairy man, Bigfoot, the Okabala, how they called it, that's what they do. They read people's minds. They know who people are wanting to hurt. People are, trying to hurt someone. And they have this mental telepathy they can actually use. And I was told that many, 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 many years ago. And I've never forgotten it.
Not something you'd quick forget.
Yeah. And, and then again, when I was older, I was in Clay, New York. And again, my cornfield, my brother-in-law, the corn was cut down. We used to race those 3-wheel ATVs around it, And one end was a woods and swamp, and the other end was more fields and a road and the house. We used to ride around that. Well, we're going to go deer hunting, jacking deer at night, which is against the law. Don't ever do that, folks. And so we're walking down. We put some salt licks out. We walked from one end of the cornfield to the other. Flashlights on the gun, And we do this whole walk. And, there's 3 guys, my cousin and my brother-in-law. 3 guys are sitting around smoking a cigarette and BS, Got your gun hanging down and just smoking and talking. And, really, it's time to go home because we didn't see anything. Out of nowhere. When I tell you this, it was, you could hear the ground almost shake. It ran between us, knocking us on the ground.
Oh, man.
When I'm telling you knocking us on the ground, I'm talking 2 flew this way, 1 flew that way. Rifles went that way, shotguns went that way, and Randy smelled that smell, and Randy's reaching for his pistol, and this thing goes into the woods, and my cousin goes, "Did you feel that deer hit us?" I go, "Deer, my happy, you know what? That's no deer." And my brother-in-law goes, "What was that?" I go, "Boys, that was Bigfoot." You're so crazy. Well, the minute I said that, you heard, we got tree limbs coming out of the swampy wooden area the size of a telephone post. You can hear them being ripped out of the water and thrown. While my brother-in-law and my cousin go, "Oh, hell with us." They start shooting. Well, if they're shooting, I'm shooting. I'm shooting my 12-gauge shotgun. I'm shooting my 2 pistols I got. It was like, the Civil War down there. We're shooting, and of course now I got to reload, and you hear water, shoo, 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 shoo. Here comes another tree limb. Oh, here comes another tree limb. Reload, shoot, pop, 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 pop. I bet you we shot 100, 150 rounds in there. My brother runs back, gets his coon dogs, brings them down there. The dogs get a whiff and hear this thing out. they went back to the house and hid underneath the porch.
Wow.
And so did Randy.
I don't blame you. Don't blame you at all.
So that was what that scared the living hell out of me. I mean, there was to have that happen, you know. And to this day, my cousin Denny says, you know, we saw that was Bigfoot. And my brother-in-law Sam goes, yep. And my kids will never play outside again. And they end up moving because they had scared them that bad. The dogs were scared, and that was in Clay, New York. We're talking from Cincinnati to you know, Clay, New York. We're talking, you know, 200 miles apart. So New York is full of Bigfoots, big, you know, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. That was another experience I had with one. And then when I was in Florida at the Okeechobee River fishing, I'm sitting out there on one bank fishing, and it's probably about 6 o'clock, you know, starting to get dusk, sun going down. And the lady comes by, she says, honey, you know what, I'll be out too late at night. She has snakes that bite you, this and that. Yeah, I said, I'm almost done. You know, got 4 or 5 fish, I'm about done. And so she left, and I'm sitting there, you know, just doo-doo-doo, smoking a cigarette. And I look across the lake, and here goes Bigfoot walking out of the woods, squats down, takes the water, and puts it up to his mouth, drinking. Now, you know those little clamshells you see in the waters?
Yeah.
It's got little clamshells. It's busting them apart, eating them. He sees me, and I see him. I'm not making a big deal about this, and neither is he. He sat there and drank, and the only thing I can think of is he was eating clamshells because they're all over the place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because you see where the raccoons will go into the water and get them and tear them apart. And he sat there watching me squatting down. Squatting down, he was big as a house to me. I mean, you know, I'm a big man. I'm 5'8" and, you know, popping in at 260. And this thing was huge. And game warden pulled up and he goes, hey, it's getting dark. He goes, you need me. And I said, yeah, I said, hey, but you need to take a look, you know, take a look across the water here. And he goes, what? It was gone.
At the wrong time.
Yeah, and he says, what'd you see? I says, well, I saw a Bigfoot. You all call it the swamp monster, swamp beast, whatever. I saw a Bigfoot standing over there eating clams or whatever and drinking water. He says, and what are you drinking and smoking, son? I said, just these Pall Malls right here, buddy. It's all I'm smoking. And he said, yeah. He goes, well, I call it a skunk ape. I said, yeah, well, you call it what you want. That Bigfoot did not look like the Bigfoots I'd seen anywhere else.
What was the kind of visual look of this one compared to the ones you used to see?
The ones I've seen in Tennessee were like, you ever see that? What's his name? The guys that took the very first video, Patterson video.
Yeah, the Patterson Gimlin footage.
That's exactly what they looked like in Tennessee.
So that's the Tennessee variant, the Patterson Gimlin type.
Yes.
And how about
when I saw in Florida, it looked like it was matted fur. You know, like a dog will get, you know, pieces of fur that are all kind of like matted together, like when it's wet and nasty looking,
mm-hmm.
like it got the mange. That's what that looked like. And it had a hairy front. You know, it wasn't the ones I've seen before. You could see its face. This one almost looked like a man sitting in a ghillie suit.
Could you tell if like the body was skinnier or similar
when he came
muscle?
Out of the woods, he was not skinny. He walked out of the woods, and he probably took 3 steps to the water from the woods. And you know, it wasn't like he was on no run. He just walking out there, and he just went out. I don't think he saw me at first, because I was just kind of sitting there still, you know, just waiting for, you know, another fish to bite, whatever. And reached up to smoke. When I put my cigarette in my mouth, that's when he looked at me and I looked at him. I'm like, what in the world is that? And he looked back and said, yeah, this is who I am. And like I said, just that car pulling up, saying, hey, take a look at this. What does it take? 10 seconds? And I turned around, he was gone that fast.
What was the color of it?
It was like an auburn, like a girl's auburn colored hair and black.
A black and auburn mix.
almost like a I would say like an orangutan color, maybe a little darker with black or brown into it. It's kind of mixed, but the fur, like on the arms and stuff, it was almost like it was matted. Like you see how the guys down in Colombia and Jamaica, and how they kind of weave their hair together. That's
Oh
what it
yeah.
looked like. Yeah, it was kind of like gnarly looking. And I had seen that, and then one other time when I was down in Alligator Alley, I had the bus. I was taking my bus down to pick up my band in Key West, and I pulled off into the reservation, the last stop before you get into Miami, where they got their national park right there. And I pulled into the reservation parking lot. It's like a trading post. I pulled in there and I turned my bus around, and I said, I'm going to sit here for a few minutes because you can't smoke on a bus. And I got out and I lit a cigarette. And as I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette, I hear beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. I went, what in the world is a beep, 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 beep going on? And I keep hearing this beep, 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 this chipper chapper, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, this is cool, I'm trying to figure out, and it's not coming. It's coming from one side and the other side. One was like behind my bus from the woods, from the swamp. And the other one was like behind the trading post off where the swamp is. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, well, I could walk down there and probably get bit by an alligator, but I'm gonna stay my little happy butt right here and smoke this cigarette. And I keep hearing this chirping. Well, of course, I got to let out this whistle, and I went real loud whistles, and it didn't whistle back. It screamed back. And when I tell you it screamed like the Bigfoots I heard before. And I said, okay, look at the time. Time to get on that bus.
Time to go ahead and head home.
I got my happy you-know-what on that bus. I shut the door. I revved that engine. Let me tell you, I was burning 18 wheels out of that place, Bill. Everybody, I just stopped till I got to Key West. That scared me to death.
I bet it did.
It was chirping like I can't explain it. It's like and it was from two different directions. I was like, what's out here? You know what I'm saying? Then I did that whistle and they made that yell. I knew what it was. And that was the first time I ever heard them communicating, talking. Doing this talking back and forth or whatever they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, look at the time. Time to get on the bus and go.
Sounded like a plum conversation between the two parties.
Yeah, they were saying, let's get the white guy from the bus.
Probably the best you got out of there then.
Time. Get the fat guy with the bus, yeah. Yeah, I've had so many encounters, with Bigfoot over the years, and, people say, wow, but why? I don't know why. It's just like they find me, I don't find them.
Now, do you ever intend to go off into the woods and do like your own research and try to see them again, or are you just kind of content to, if it happens, it happens?
If someone would listen to me and make it worth, I'm not saying I want to get rich, just make it worth getting there and getting home, I would go out and because I know I can get pictures of Bigfoot. I know how to capture a Bigfoot. By putting him to night land, he will go to sleep. I talked to a couple. Did you ever see Mountain Monsters?
Yeah, we've met a few of them at a Cryptid Con or two.
Okay. I talked to their producer. And I said, listen, you guys, I think his name is Kevin Youngkid. I said, you guys want to catch this thing? I'll tell you how to catch it. First of all, y'all can't go out there and make all kinds of noise building traps.
Yeah, that's not going to do it.
I said, and put these cameras up. While a Bigfoot can't see those cameras, if you've got deer cameras out there and the deer walk up and look at your camera while you're trying to, take pictures, and the mountain lions and the raccoons walk up there, you don't think he can see that too?
Oh, some much higher intelligence.
Gonna scare it right off.
Yeah, and that's why they never get one on film. But I've done my research and stuff, and there was a guy here in in Vegas. He does the Elvis show and Michael Jackson. He's the one that said he had the Bigfoot frozen.
Oh, Rick
Ed,
Dyer.
no, Ed was his partner. Ed's something. I'll have to look it up for you, but he did a show, and he wanted me to come on his show. Yeah, he wanted me to book his Michael Jackson show and Elvis show because I was booking bands and stuff like that. And somehow he said he was doing his Bigfoot thing, and I told him what I was kind of basically telling you. I said, my grandfather said to do this and this, and you will get him. And I said, put the peanut butter on some logs, and well, they're just like kind of hang out at your camp. Don't go out hunting. Don't go out banging on the side of the, doing knocks and screaming into the woods because Bigfoot's not stupid. He knows what you're doing. They know it's not a Bigfoot, and you're not going to draw him in. I said, if you want to catch him, build a cage large enough so he can't reach in, and build one long enough so he, once he's in, he can't get out. But the bars better be pretty strong because I don't see Bigfoot being caged with little steel bars and chicken wire.
No, I don't reckon so.
You have to have some serious prison bars on that thing. Well, I saw his show air. He put the peanut butter out, and they supposedly caught one in the cage. To me, it looked like Harry and the Andersons of Bigfoot. And it was sitting in the corner all holed up, afraid. And then the next morning, someone let it out, and it ran off. There's so much crap with people on, wanting to catch Bigfoot. I told the guys from Alaskan mountain monsters there, they did exactly what I said. I said, put it to sleep with food in its grain or apples, put it in something, and it'll go to sleep. Or put down boards with nails sticking out of it, put some sedative on there, like tranquilizer stuff. I says, it'll step on it. It's going to go night-night. Even if it sticks on one, it's going to go to sleep. They did exactly what I told them. When Bigfoot went up to this little shed they had, he stepped on that, fell down, and then they all started screaming and yelling and running with torches. And then another Bigfoot came in and smashed the back of the door and picked the one that was out for the count up and ran off. And I said, well, see, what I told you worked. But, you can't go out there like a bunch of yahoos. And they did exactly. Go out there and do a campfire and have a good time. Don't go out knocking on trees and doing all this stuff. Bigfoot will find you. You don't have to find him. If you're out there building traps, you don't think he's out there watching you?
More than likely, yeah.
He is watching you. You may not see him, but he is watching. He's not going to go in that trap. He's not stupid. And
you don't think that maybe when they're causing a ruckus like that, it might not want to come around?
Exactly. If you look at, I've done so much research on Bigfoot over the years, and most of the footage caught is with like kids outside playing at the campfire. People are out just having a good time. And 20 years later, 10 years later, you show the video and you see Bigfoot walking in the tree line behind them. They just now notice it.
That's basically how we've always got our best research. If we go somewhere and have a bonfire and just sit around the fire and shoot the breeze with friends, generally that's the best. You get the best activity just doing that.
Yeah, one of the best whoops we ever recorded. We weren't out there crawling around the woods or making noise and stuff. We were around a fire eating popcorn.
Yeah.
Yep. I met a lot of moonshiners in Tennessee, and then moonshiners tell me that Bigfoot will go and eat their grain.
Makes sense, yeah.
And a lot of hunters, the grain things hang up in the trees, with the grain in and stuff for the deer. They'll find those empty, all the grains on the ground. Bigfoot likes that stuff. He likes apples. He likes different stuff. And people who say they don't believe in Bigfoot are people who have never seen one, or seen one and don't want to admit it. But when people tell you, oh yeah, I seen Bigfoot and I had my gun posted on it, if you didn't shoot, either he was telling you, he was glamoring you, telling you not to shoot him, or you're just stuck on stupid because something walked out in front of me like that, I'm shooting. I'd be scared to death. You can hear the bullets rattle in the gun. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, come on. And they never say they smell the smell. And the people say they do smell. Yeah, it smell like a dirty skunk. No, it don't. But I talk to people and say, oh, yeah, I smell this and that, and it smelled just like this. I go, no, right there tells me, in my mind, you're lying. I used to train kids how to be police officers and stuff, and I have a lot of cop friends. And I've done a lot of police stuff, police departments, and watching the way people talk, their eyes, when they look at you, their body motions, how they hug their hands, body movement. You can tell people when they're lying when you see them. You know what I'm saying? When they tell you this stuff. And I believe thousands of people have seen them. The people who claim they've seen them, I would say 8 out of 10 probably did. The other percentage don't. They just want their 15 minutes of fame. Yeah, and there's another story. Did you read about the little boy that got lost in the woods for 5 days?
I think I know where this is going, but why don't you tell the story?
Well, they sent in Navy SEALs and Rangers to look for this little boy. No one could find this kid. 5 days later, now we're talking cold, rainy. Kid had no shoes, just a pair of shorts on. I don't even think he had a shirt on. And when they found the little boy in the middle of a path, which they already went past, on their way back, they found him. The little boy said, where have you been? A bear was taking care of me. It was a bear. You know yourself. You're a hunter. You know bears. He would have been food.
I've heard similar stories where little kids have been lost like that, and they said the big doggy kept them warm.
Uh-huh.
And I'm probably butchering this a little bit, but I heard one story at one point. I think it was from the 1800s I think it might have been a bear that tried to kidnap a child, and the parent was able to get it back, but this bear or big dog allegedly picked up and kidnapped a child, and I forget where I heard that.
Well, this little boy kept saying it was a bear, 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 and I tried contacting those people, and no comment. Nobody would talk to me. I was told, don't ever call this number again, because they didn't. They didn't want to know that Bigfoot took their kid, because a bear will not take care of you. He said, yeah, the bear picked me up and carried me. Bears don't pick up people.
No, they don't.
And you remember the Paradise fire in California? About 3 years ago, where everybody lost their homes. The town of Paradise got burnt to the ground.
Oh, yeah, I think I do.
Familiar with that one, but that's a terrible tragedy.
A woman and her child got caught up underneath some kind of building. It was a sawmill or something. And the fire was burning. And they hid underneath it and they couldn't get out. And they said Bigfoot came over and picked up the board and pushed out the fire for them to get away.
That's incredible.
And the next morning, she said they caught on fire. And then that morning, when they were telling them, she went back and the military was putting this thing in a white body bag and carrying it off.
Isn't that interesting?
You know what I'm saying? And of course, the military ain't gonna tie it up. But that woman there, her story's also been ranked off the internet and known to, not to be found for the conversation either.
No, I know they don't want nothing like that getting out.
No, because it's gonna screw up everything we've always been told.
Somewhere the government has an Indiana Jones style warehouse full of things they don't want getting out, and probably full of bodies of Bigfoot and anything else like that.
Exactly. It's like the Bray Wolf in Wisconsin and the LBL werewolf down there in Tennessee and Kentucky area. I'm not saying that stuff ain't true, because the military plays with a lot of crazy shit, and I believe they let it go to see what it'll do. You know what I'm saying?
More than likely. Oh, I'd believe it at least.
There's just too many things that have come up here lately. Funny dead animals people found on the beach, and they take pictures of it. And next thing you know, it's gone, never to be heard from, and they pull them down as fast as you get up. But Bigfoot, I believe, and I watch a lot of the History Channel, and I'm into to the Egyptians and the pyramids and stuff. And even if we go back to a lot of the cavemen, they have pictures of Bigfoot, a big, hairy monster type of thing, and it's next to like a little alien guy with a helmet on. And that's what I've come across in the past maybe 2 years. Now I don't know if Bigfoot's part of an alien race that they put here many years ago, but Bigfoot's been around since the caveman, as
Well,
far as I can see.
Well, even the old legend of the, I think they call them like the Blimies or something like that. They're called the headless men, that their faces was in their chest. But if you look at the pictures, you can see these kind of hairy men, and it's entirely possible that when they say they were headless, a lot of Bigfoot sightings, they're described as almost not really having a neck, that the head kind of blends into the shoulders.
Yes, and it does.
Maybe it's not that they were headless. Maybe they just didn't really see the neck well, and they just thought it was something headless, and its face was in the middle of its chest.
You could be absolutely right, because, like I said, the Bigfoots I've seen, and I've seen on real pictures, there is no neck. It's like his ears are above his shoulders.
So it really just kind of the head blends into the shoulders.
Like a gorilla. Like a gorilla. Like if you look at a gorilla's face, like our ears, it's kind of like that. And the gorilla's got that massive neck.
Right.
They're so big, they don't really have a neck. And people say, oh, you didn't see it big. How could he? I've seen this thing go up a hill. And we're talking a hill, I'm talking a good 80 degrees up that stuff, like he was walking on flat land.
And nothing normal can really do that.
No, you can't explain it to me. I don't care what they tell me. If you see one, believe me, you will not forget it. And Bigfoot is real. I did a syndicated Bigfoot show back in 2017 after I saw that Bigfoot steal the deer. And I really haven't talked about it a lot to anybody on the radios or anything like that. They'll hear it lately because I'm 60 years old. And, first of all, for me to come out and say this, especially being a preacher, people can think I'm already crazy. But, the things I've done, I have no reason to lie about it. I'm not gaining nothing from this. I just want to prove it's true. And I know it's true because I've seen it. But these Bigfoot guys on TV, if they saw one, I think they'd all be running with their tails between their legs.
I actually heard from a friend of mine who was on a TV show recently. They were out in a spot, and I think it was North Carolina, with a TV crew, and they started hearing some weird noises, and the cameraman actually got scared and ran off and left the researcher in the woods because when these noises started up, and they left him.
Wow.
Well, the guy, Trapper and his boys there,
Right.
Every time I've known a couple. I used to watch the show from day one because I want to see. I'm educating myself to see if they're lying or telling the truth. At one time, where they got surrounded by the Bigfoots, and they thought they found a burial ground,
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, these Bigfoots started yelling. No one throwing them; they're just yelling. These guys couldn't get out of the woods fast enough.
It can be very spooky when something actually.
When things happen, absolutely can.
We've had things get violent a time or two on our end before, and it's spooky.
It's very unsettling.
Well, something I truly believe. And matter of fact, I talked to a guy in California. I talked to him about 8 months ago. He wants me to come to California and go sit in the middle of the woods with him because he says, same thing the Indians say, that I've got this communication with Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know what it is, but they find me like the snake. I'd be in Tennessee with you, and you say, Randy, I ain't seen a snake in 2 years. I walk out in the yard and I'm gonna find one. I mean, that's just my luck. That's how it happens. And he says that he goes out there and with no gun, no nothing, takes his canoe out and he goes out there and talks to the Bigfoot and stuff like that. He wants me to come out there and sit with him. I said, well, yeah, I'll come out there and sit with you, but I ain't going to sit in the woods with bears and cougars and everything else without a gun. And he goes, well, then you can't come with me. I said, well, I saw a lot of horror movies, Bill.
Yeah, I
And
don't blame you a bit for that.
No.
yeah, I'm not going out with any guy I don't know, first of all, walking into the woods with nothing. But I said, well, I'll bring a can of bear mace. You know what I'm saying? Now, if Bigfoot was to come after me, I don't want to kill it, but I will mace it.
Exactly.
Well, that's self-defense. I mean,
Yeah, it's self-defense. I'm not trying to kill it. Would I kill one? If he walked up on me and I was threatening, yeah, I'd put it right between the eyes. I'm not shooting at belly because I know it don't work. Believe me, I'm going to put whatever I can into it. I'd rather spray him, take a picture of it, and, make the walk and have a come to Jesus meeting later.
yeah, I mean, same here. I'm a no-kill person, but if I got attacked by one, I'm gonna defend myself. I don't want to die to one of them things.
Yeah, we're not looking for a hunting trophy. We just want to see it. But if it attacks us, sorry, dude, I'm shooting.
Yeah.
If you guys would go out and have like a campfire, and you would set cameras out shooting across from you, so it shoots behind you, close to your camp. Not in the woods, but kind of like on the border of the woods,
Mm-hmm.
So you're making the north to south, east, and west. So if anything is behind you or anything off you, those cameras would shoot video or take pictures.
I think that's an excellent idea and way of doing it. That way, if anything's watching, you get it on footage.
I'll try that method out sometime. We got a spot over in India Mound where we get pretty good activity.
And I truly believe you can get one that easy versus posting them up in the trees. Keep it, if you're sitting on, say, in a circle and you got your tents up there, just set it like, 30 feet off so it's shooting towards you guys. You know what I'm saying? And yes, they're going to go off, but wouldn't you rather have it go off and see something in the background versus it seeing something as it's walking up to you?
Absolutely.
Because like I said, deer can see those, raccoons see them, he can see it, and it's facing you. He's not really looking. He's interested in what's going on at that campfire. Marshmallows, kids laughing, music playing. I've heard people say they're playing guitars on their farms and they'll see a Bigfoot walk off to the edge of the woods. Never do anything. I think you're more likely to catch a video of one when you're not looking for it. Let it come to you. You don't need to go out and do any knocking and yelling. Just go out there like you're camping, having a good time. Because if you watch all these people, 8 out of 10 of them get their pictures when they're not trying.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like the ones with the kids out there doing campfire, you see Bigfoot walking behind them, the kids in their background. The ones with the parents or the fathers shooting them skiing off, lying at the toboggan, their sleds off the hill. And years later, someone says, what's that bear doing over there on the right-hand side of where your kids were? They blow it in. It's Bigfoot stand. Who's watching the kids?
We got that one from New York, too, where they're just shooting the breeze around the campfire, and you can see the little baby one swinging around up in the tree.
Yeah. And do you ever see the one that they had? It was Africa shooting the antelope running across the African floor, whatever, running across, and all of a sudden these herds start running, and they're going, "Look at these antelope! They're on the run, this and that." And no one ever said why. I'm watching the show, and I freeze it, because I'm watching it on my DVR box or whatever, and I stop and I look. And there's a Bigfoot running down behind this hill with a baby on its back, and it's chasing the antelope.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Just right on TV?
Yeah, on TV, and none of those people saw that.
You know what? I was watching a scary movie from the 80s once, an old slasher flick called The Burning, and they had it was like a summer camp type movie, so they were recording some footage of like nighttime nature sounds, and there was what sounded like a Bigfoot call right there mixed in with their frog noises.
Yeah, I think it might have been about 3/4 of the way through the movie, something like that.
Yeah, well, and that's what happened. I mean, I've sat in the woods, and I've heard, the whistles, and I've heard, woo-woo, woo-woo, like I don't know. I can't imitate it, but, I've heard those noises, and I've seen those trees upside down, and I've had things fall on me like, the hell's that? Acorns fall on my head? Where's that squirrel at? And I've held that smell. And if he was going to hurt me, he'd have got me.
Yeah, if he wanted to get you or anybody else out in the woods, they'd be able to easily pull it off.
he's so quick he could run and take 3 or 4 of us out in that time and keep running.
Absolutely. And
And
you can say that firsthand because y'all were football tackled by one.
Yeah, well, that was my next thing. He ran through us and knocked us down and kept going. He didn't try to hurt us, although we tried to hurt him because, they got scared. I got scared, and trees started flying out like telephone poles, And so, I know it's there. I don't care who believes me or whatever. They say, hey, you're as crazy as a bedbug. But you know something? I will prove it one day, and someone will listen to what I have to say about how to capture one. All I got to do is put them to sleep. And all these big show people will be done.
Heck yeah, brother.
And you guys, I'm telling you, take your camp. I was watching this thing where they have a campground out by LBO or something like that with a Bigfoot. And these people meet every year and it's growing larger and larger.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll tree knock. Did you hear that? I didn't hear a dang thing. Did you hear that? Hey, did you guys hear any knocks back there at the camp? No, we thought that was you. Did you hear any? Well, we heard some. We didn't hear nothing. They all go out there and have a good time. And I want to call those people and say, listen, forget yelling and hooping. Just go there and have a good family, friends party. Put your camera so we're all facing out into the woods, from you, or facing in from north, east, south, and west towards you. And you might be surprised what you'll find. I truly believe they'll look for you before you'll look for them, because you're not going to see them. I don't know if they have portholes they can run through or they disappear through. Matter of fact, there's people in Tennessee I talked to who run a band right down from where my cousins lives. We had the experience. At the end of the road comes to, you got to either go left or right. He says he was going, everybody says they see balls of light out there in the woods, floating these balls of light about the size of basketballs. And my wife said she's seen the same thing down there. And he told me that he saw one out there one morning about 5:30 in the morning. And he said, I'll wait till the balls stop jumping around. And so he saw one. He started walking out there. And he says he got out there about 50 yards, and there stood Bigfoot. The ball of light went away, and there stood Bigfoot. I said, what'd you do? He says, I walked very fast backwards. I said, why didn't you shoot? He goes, I was scared if I didn't hit it, it was going to kill me. So, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they're running in and out of portholes, if they're traveling these caves and mines and stuff, but it's out there. And people who want to prove this, I'm telling everybody that's listening to the show, don't look for it. Let it look for you if you want to find it. And the rocks, when they do that stackable rock thing with you, the guy who does the UFO show, the one that's got the hair, he's a Greek guy. He's got his hair all standing straight up.
Oh, yeah.
I text him, because he's on my thing. I said, I want to talk to you about this Bigfoot UFO thing. And I says, next time you go there, take a radiation thing and see if those rocks have any energy to them. He did it on one of his shows. And a man had a rock that he had found sitting on a pile. And when he put the Geiger counter down there, it went dee 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 dee. It started beeping. It had an energy to that rock.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So I think, they communicate with these rocks. They touch it. They have some kind of, power they have. But they've been around a long time. And I get these guys to say, well, we don't find any bones of Bigfoot. You find any bear bones? How many bears and bones and skulls have you ever found out in the woods?
That's an excellent
You
point.
don't
I don't
generally
recall
find
ever
that.
seeing a bear bone.
No, you'll find deer, you'll find bobcat, you'll find pigs, but you never found a bear.
You're absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
And if Bigfoot is trying to keep from everybody, he's going to go in one of these caves, or back in the caves where people can't get, like bears. They hibernate. Well, some of these bears may go back to where they hibernate and die. Now, there ain't no like going to eat them, but people don't even find bear bones in those places.
Yeah, it's a rare thing, indeed. Absolutely.
Well, any bear skulls that you will find that people have, they're from zoos or farms.
I've certainly never found a bear skull in the wild.
Or a bear they had killed.
Makes sense to me.
People need to stop and do the math. Bigfoot's been around thousands of years, I'll tell you. That's what I believe. And, we're just now finding cavemen and these huge giants and all these other things, that we didn't think existed. There was no giants. Yeah, it says in the Bible there were giants. If you read Enoch, the Bible, parts of the Bible are thrown into the Dead Sea. He just now got. It talks about, God sent giants down to help the earth and rule the earth. They started mating with people and having these goofy-looking kids who were giants and stuff like this, and other gods came down to kill them and stuff. But that book talks a lot about giants and Bigfoot. Nobody reads it. Go online and read it. It's called the Book of Enoch. You'll be surprised what you see in there because history's lied to us so many years.
I've been meaning to get an actual printed copy of that book because I have a hard time reading like Kindle editions and whatnot, but I've been meaning to add it to my collection.
They've got they've got one that you can vocalize. Like Lady Liberty, that's Satan's daughter. It says her name is Liberty, and it shows you a picture of Liberty, Satan's wife, Satan's son, how Satan took his wife and cast her into a ball of fire, where Adam was already had a wife before Eve. And they took it, threw that all away and just made Adam and Eve. If you look at the Bible, it doesn't talk about cavemen, don't talk about dinosaurs. It starts with Adam and Eve. That's not about it, because science doesn't want us to know the things that have been out there and that are still out there. And, you're finding old elephants, up in Alaska. Who's to say an old giant or an old Bigfoot or an old caveman didn't freeze up and come to life? We don't know. But they don't want us to know. And Bigfoot will be a legend until someone actually captures one, or it kills somebody.
You're absolutely right, my friend.
And even when it kills somebody, they won't say. They're just now coming out with UFOs. I just saw it on TV. I watched the Real News, American Online Real News. Right at the bottom of the little teletype, U.S. government's now coming out with files of UFOs.
Yeah, we're finally getting some stuff.
Finally, some information on that. Well, Elijah, my brother, it is about the hour and 40-minute mark. I think that's just about our time limit for the show this evening.
Well, guys, I had a great time talking to you. You guys are great hosts. I'm sorry I dragged this on so long with you, but
it was a wonderful show. We thank you so much for being on. Have you got any closing thoughts?
Yes, I do, and I'll give it to you real quick. People like you two spreading the news and trying to prove it is what the world needs. And people who listen to your show, listen with open minds, because an open mind is what's going to get you through this world and through life. Because you don't see something doesn't mean you shouldn't believe in something. Because until you open your mind and hear what people are saying, because 10,000 people can't be wrong that said they've seen this thing. Until that day comes, Bigfoot will always stay a mystery.
I agree, my friend. And thank you very much for your kind words.
Yes, thank you, and thank you so much for being on for us.
I've had a great pleasure tonight talking to Rockin Randy. It's been a blast, brother.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it. And everybody out there, listen to this show. If you never watched it or listened to it, you need it, because these guys are on the money, what they talk about, and it's always a straight-up truth as far as they can take it, what people say, because, again, you got to keep an open mind to what's going on in the world today.
And Randy, do you have any self-promotion that you'd like to do?
No, only promotion I got is if anybody out there who's interested in wanting to learn more about Bigfoot or has, like to hear some ideas on how to get some pictures or how to get some help, they can contact you. And you can contact me and give me their information. Because of my wrestling status and the TV shows and the radio shows I do, and I try to keep people. It's my fortress of solitude. I don't really let a lot of people know where I live. I mean, I live in Las Vegas. Everybody knows that, but I try to keep everything private. But anybody that knows you, a friend of yours is a friend of mine. So, anybody wants some help and stuff like that, I'd be more than glad to talk to them.
Well, sounds good, my friend.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure, and Godspeed, and may the Lord put a hedge of protection around you and your families, and I hope you guys get a good picture with some proof of Bigfoot.
I got my fingers crossed. I really hope so. And, brother, thank you so much again. You have a great night. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless you guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.